The green keeps showing up on your backdrop.
It's my screen is shaking. You know, like when you first pull it up, the
Oh,
vibrations in it. I wish it wouldn't, but you know, that's
okay.
it definitely is. So
Good morning.
good morning. How are you, Dr. Campbell and Diane? Hello, hello.
How
At
are
least I
you?
thought you were coming on camera this morning.
I, well, I'll get off.
No, Diane looks beautiful. I'm not there yet.
Oh.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, I think we are recording already. And just give me one sec. For some reason, Go Live is not doing like it usually does. So do it one more time. Right, we are going live. You ready? Starting with our intro song. In spite of all your hurt and pain, disappointments and everyday strain, there is a place where you can go, where your visions and dreams can grow. I am beautiful too. I'm telling you I am beautiful too. So beautiful, your heart is beautiful. I am beautiful, our lives are beautiful. We are so beautiful, together we are. I am forever we are. Together we are. So beautiful, so beautiful. You should know, God told me so. Well, good Saturday afternoon to everyone. Here we are with IAMB2's Speak Up, I Can't Hear You virtual series about women who are transcending boundaries. It is so good to be on this morning. I'm so excited for our guests this morning. I'm excited for our attendees because the information can change our lives and save our lives as women. I have Dr. Michelle Bean with us, and she's founder of Pink Me. And I want her in her time to tell us a little bit about Pink Me, how she arrived at Pink Me. I want you all to know that as we come together each week for these segments about women who transcended boundaries, it is important to our organization that we share information that can enhance each other. As we leave 2020 and go into 2021, we will have some new foundational principles, concepts, and theories to walk us through 2021. I do believe that we will be better women after hearing these segments. I am so excited about all of my guests. I'm like hyped up. I'm trying not to be as hyped as I normally am, but Michelle's story is just so incredible. And what she does in the communities around the world is so incredible. And I want her to share her story this morning. I want you all to relax and enjoy. Of course, if you have anything that you want to share, you can type in the chat. I'm going to try to watch the chat. I know that I got a couple of my right hands on the line who will keep me informed if there's anything I need to know about the chat, as well as anything going on around me. But Michelle, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. I appreciate the invitation today
Yes,
to
yes,
share my story.
yes.
Yes, so Pink Me was founded based on the experience that my twin sister and I had with breast cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer February of 2016, and 6 weeks later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And going through that journey together, we were each other's support system. And going through that journey, it was a lot of barriers that we both faced. One particularly was financial barrier, because this disease is very expensive. But just to go back a little bit, she found the lump in her breast one evening before going to bed. And I remember she called me and shared that with me. And I said, well, go to the doctor. It's probably nothing. We both talked through that process. And sure enough, she did go to the doctor, and come to find out it was stage 2 breast cancer, and it had spread it to her lymph nodes. And through her treatment plan, we found out that she was a carrier of the BRCA1 gene. And going through that journey and being there with her, my mother shared with me, Michelle, when you go back to New Mexico, go get your mammogram. I said, okay, I'll do that. I promised my mother that I would do that. And in that process, they found my breast cancer, an earlier stage of the disease there. So it's important that when we have these experiences to share our journey, because it can help someone else. Because I had no idea that I had that going on in my body. And my doctor did share with me, by the time I would have went to get my mammogram at this age, it would have been too late for me, because when they went in, I had my surgery, the doctor explained that my breast cancer was far back to my chest wall. And it was like someone splattered paint in my breast. So mine would not have been easily detectable because of it being back on the chest wall. So with that experience, going through this process, I remember being home one evening and I was moved. It was very strong on me, Pink Me. It was very clear in my mind. And I sat on it. I didn't do anything with it until January of this year. I said, I have to do it. I have to do this, because going through this process, I found more and more that my friends, family members were being diagnosed with this disease. And I said, I'm surrounded by this. In January of this year, I was moved to move forward with the vision of what I saw with the organization. And everything just happened so quickly. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic now, and to see that this organization is moving forward to be able to help other women in the community. Yeah. And one of our programs is to provide financial assistance, because with my journey with my twin sister, on paper, we're both professionals. I'm a professional. I'm the director of health information management at a hospital in northern New Mexico. So I know what that process looked like, being a health professional in the HIM field. And just to go back a little bit, I forgot to share this portion of my journey of how I found out that I had breast cancer, which is important.
Yes.
Because no news is not always good news, because sometimes we'll go through the process of our treatment, our diagnosis, testing, and we say, well, you know, we didn't hear from the doctor, so everything's okay. No, not necessarily. In my case, I did not get a phone call. I didn't get anything. So to assume no news is good news, that's not good. I remember being at work, and I said, you know, I have not heard anything. What's going on? And so I put on the patient hat. I left my office. I went up to the front window and I requested copies of my medical record. I remember getting copies of my medical record, and I went back in my office and I closed the door. And that's how I found out that I had breast cancer. And the first thought process that I had in reading my record to see that I now have this disease, and I remember thinking to myself, how am I now going to share this with my parents, which are now in Virginia caring for my sister going through her chemo treatments? They now have 2 daughters with this disease.
Yes.
So it's important for the women in our community, when we're going through the process of our care, our treatment plan, testing, to follow up and be your own advocate. When you have your biopsy or testing, you have the right to request copies of your medical record. So I did that, and that's how I found out. I did not get that phone call.
Yeah.
So as part of the organization with Pink Me, we want to educate the women in the community, utilizing my background as a health professional and as a health information professional to share those small pearls with the women, because not everyone know how to navigate through the system and know that they have a right to copies of their medical record.
Yes, yes. So Dr. Bean, let me just stop just for a second, because you said some very important things that I want the ladies to hear. First of all, going through breast cancer, not only you had it, but your sister had it, which is, you know, symbolic of something that's hereditary, that's happening in one family. And so sometimes we think, okay, you know, my sister's going through it, you know, let me help her, let my family be here for her. But then your family had to help or be there for both of you all, whether they could be with you in New Mexico or not, definitely there with you on the phone, you know, being there for you as a support. So just talk a little bit about what that was like for you. First of all, hearing it from your sister, and then going to get the diagnosis. And then I want you to talk a little bit more about the fact that you had to really find out for yourself. You know, because sometimes we all think, and we've all been coached. This is what I want to get to, and I'll repeat this again. But we've all been coached to dial the number on the card when you've had a specific type of test, or they will mail you something. And if you don't get that in the mail, you assume it's okay. If you don't get the call, you assume it's okay, or you look for something in the mail that could take a week or 2 to get. So I want to make sure we stick a pin in that. But tell me about how the support was for you, your family, your sister.
Our support system, it was phenomenal. My parents, my family, close friends, because as we know, it's not more so about the physical part of this disease, it's the mental health and wellness.
Yes.
And that encouragement, the positivity, and also that financial support as well, because there's so many different facets that come along with that diagnosis, the follow-up, the surgeries, the treatment plan. And I know in my case, when I had to go through the radiation treatment, they could not provide what I needed here in my state, so they had to fly me to Arizona. So being able to have family members to go with me to another state for my treatment journey there in another state, all of that support system is truly important. And for women to understand that it's nothing that we did wrong, to not go through this journey in silence, because I've experienced some that decide not to share their experience and to go through the process in silence.
Yes.
And there's so many different resources out there for us where no one has to go through this journey alone and going through it in silence and not sharing it in their community of supporters.
Yes. Okay. I'm just writing down some notes because you said a couple of key things I want to make sure that we highlight. So now tell me now about, you know, you working as it, because many of us may not be working and have access to look at our records, go right to maybe the doc or to someone who's been involved. What was it like when because again, you wait, I usually get a little card, you know what I mean, in the mail. I mean, when you're leaving, they give you a card, let me get this right. And it has a phone number on it, and it says, call this number, yada, yada, yada. And then maybe sometimes I get a letter in the mail, but you didn't get that. You didn't even get the call to say, hey, we need you to come back in. There's something, we think that we need to look at something. So in that, you know, the doc told you when he went in, you know, if you hadn't pursued them, it could have been, you know, even more that you would have had to experience, or could have been detrimental. So tell us about that, because that's so important, because sometimes we don't really think about it. When we don't get the call, we say, okay, everything's fine. What made you go beyond that?
To be honest, what made me go beyond that, in my scenario, my situation, because my best friend, my twin sister, was going through this journey. So I had to know.
Yes.
I had to know. And not getting that phone call, not getting that card. And I remember specifically having a conversation with the provider, sharing with him my professional background. I understand the process with medical records. And that was still not communicated to me as a professional.
Yes.
So it's truly important for us, because there are some that don't know how to navigate through that.
Yes.
And it is important for us to have that voice, especially with your background, my background as health information management professionals, to share with our community of women that you have that voice, you have that right to request copies of your health information.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. The other thing you talked about that was so important to me is don't go through this in silence. And you're right, there are some people who are just private and they do go through it in silence. But tell us, you know, about that. Tell us how you found, because you know, we find our voice in the things that we go through. Those things that are purpose driven in our life, we find a voice. How did you find your voice? And I have to add this, because when we talked, when you were getting things together for your first conference, and we were talking about the keynote speaking and everything, there were a couple things that you said to me about women that I'm telling you, the passion, everything that you've experienced came through in that message about women, the resources, and what women don't know. So I want this audience, those who are here with us, of course, but those who are also going to be, who are listening on Facebook Live and who will watch the recording, I want them to hear Dr. Michelle Bean's passion about Pink Me and about women being educated on breast cancer.
Yes, with our organization, Pink Me, it actually stands for Providing Information, Networking, Knowledge, My Experience.
Yes.
And when we go through our experiences, it helps others that are on their journey, because we never know what someone else may be faced with future state. But this information can be transformational
Yes.
to our community. And I do remember specifically when we did speak a while back about something that I experienced with going through this disease. And it's important not for us to be in silence with it. There's a lot of questions that come along with it. And I remember when I went to my plastic surgeon, and the physician sharing with me that my breasts will no longer be breasts anymore, just accessories. And I said,
Yes.
What does that mean exactly? So there's a lot of questions that you go through with going through the journey. And I remember each appointment, it felt like I was just sitting on the edge of my chair with a glimpse of hope for that provider to share with me that everything would be okay. And I remember in that process thinking, what did that actually mean? And after that appointment, I came home and I remember being in the shower. and I felt my breasts, I felt my butt. I'm not being nasty or anything, but it's important for these
Yes, give
details
us the
because
message.
certain things that are not talked about.
Yes.
And I remember the feeling of my breasts and my butt and in my mind, because it's mental.
Yes.
It's okay, they feel the same because I'm still processing. What does that statement mean? And so I held on to the feeling of both.
Yes.
Because as a woman, our breast, that's the most intimate part of us. And that now is going to be taken away.
Yes.
So I'm going through my mind, what does that mean? Just accessories.
Yes.
And I remember a small, still voice that everything's going to be okay because your butt, Michelle, and your breasts feel the same. So I had that to hold on to. So after going through the double mastectomy, and they were able to spare my nipples because that's something that is not automatic for everyone. You have to be a candidate for that procedure. And after that process, and I then understood because now my breasts are numb. I don't have feelings. All of that has been taken away, but I'm okay because I have that comparison now to hold on to.
Yes. Wow. 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 I hear your passion. I hear, how important this is to you, Michelle. First of all, before we go any further, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Because so many of us feel great. We feel great. We feel like we look great. And yet there's something going on in our bodies, and we need to be, as you shared about having to touch your body, that's so important. It's a part of our lives. We got to do it so that we know our bodies and we know when there's something that's not right. And certainly I love your transparency because yes, as women, our breasts, our butts, our legs, even our arms, the way our back, the middle of our back, there are things about us that God has given us that are so important to us. And so we feel like, oh, it might be taken away. So, to share that is so important. I want to just go to the chat because you got it blowing up over here. Henrietta said, my question is, why was the ball dropped when the doc didn't follow back up with you?
Henrietta, to be honest, I don't have an answer to that. And that's why I'm so passionate about the organization to communicate some of those things. And maybe that's something that I had to go through to be able to transcend boundaries with other women and to share. Because sometimes when you go through that personal experience, you're able to understand when others share their journey of, I didn't get that phone call, or I didn't know. There's empathy, there's compassion, there's understanding. So that's the answer to maybe why I had to go through that experience, so I can be able to help others in the community. But to be honest, I really don't know why that ball was dropped in my case personally.
The next question is from Lady Smith. She said, knowing that you were in the profession and did not get the follow-up call or letter, how did that affect your process?
It did not affect my process because I knew being in the field of what the next step was. So after I got the copies of my records, I knew to call my provider that wrote the order initially for me to go and to get that procedure done. So that was the next step. I called my provider and I informed her that I had that information and I have copies of my record and I see what the diagnosis is for me. And of course, she was very upset, and I was able to provide her those copies so the next steps could happen for my care.
And I love that question because some people do and some people don't know what health information professionals do, but we are the ones who guide, direct, manage all of the practices associated with documentation as it moves throughout a healthcare enterprise, from along the continuum of care, from the beginning of care to the end and beyond. We are the ones. So we know those records backwards and forwards. We know, especially at a specific facility that we work at, we know what documentation is housed in that record. We know where it's positioned in the record, whether it's paper or electronic. We know that information. So, right, that's such a great point from Lady Smith. I just wanted to highlight that because health information could mean many things to many people, but to us, we know it backwards and forwards. So when we don't get it, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, we know that that's a problem. Let's see, Cheryl said that your transparency is greatly appreciated. And Dr. Campbell said, as HIM professionals, we must lead the charge for stressing the importance of the patient health record and accessing patient portals. So I agree with that. Would you agree with that as well, as far as the person having access to our personal health information and patient portals? And just talk a little bit about patient portals and having access to your own information through a portal. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, that is very important. Dr. Campbell, thanks for bringing that up. I know through my journey, the patient portal, wonderful. You know, it's important for everyone to know how to access that information as well. But just to go back a little bit, what helped me through my process, and even with my sister, because sometimes technology, we can have challenges with technology, but I remember going through requesting copies and keeping paper copies because I found it easier in my case when going to various appointments to have that readily available in my hand. If a provider needed a copy, they got a copy, because that was the case when I had to go to Arizona. The provider said that he did not have a copy of my operative report, and he asked me a specific question. He says, Ms. Bean, was your implant, your expanders above or below underneath the chest muscle? Because I need to know that in order to see if you qualify for the radiation. And I panicked. I said, I'm not sure. He said, I don't have a copy of your operative report to see that. I said, I have it right here. And I gave him a copy of it. And he read through it and he explained to me where it was. It was under the chest muscle. And he told me, he said, if I not have known that information, your trip here to Arizona would have been in vain. So for my information with my care, it helped me to have those paper copies readily available in my hand. And I have it with me home, locked up and everything, so I can look through it.
Yes.
Not remembering a password, trying to access the information, because it's already anxiety when you're going through this, and to try to figure out, okay, where is this? All my labs, my H&P, my discharge. So I kept everything organized in my own medical record, because that paper-based record is something about that paper-based record as an HIM professional that it's the foundation for me as a professional.
Me too. One of the things that you shared, and I want to highlight this, is because you couldn't get the treatment and care you needed in New Mexico, you had to go to Arizona, right?
Yes.
Talk about what that means to be able to not be able to be in an area where you're familiar with, and you had to go to a doc who I'm assuming was a new doc that you did not know, and get care. So talk to us about it, because I think that many of us may have to deal with that as we move from one physician to the next. We've been with this doc for 30 years. We don't want to change. We want to go do something different in a different hospital, different area where we're not familiar. So talk to us about that, and then remind, because I want to go back to the chat. These women are blowing it up over here. I don't want you to miss what they're saying. Okay.
One thing that was important for me, I was my own advocate. I asked questions. I was an engaged patient. And that part is very important as you go through the various components of your health treatment plan. My providers here, they knew that. When I came to every appointment, I had my medical record with me organized. So that was very helpful for me. I asked questions when I was told that I needed to go to another provider. I asked questions about that provider. I did research. So that comfort level for me, and making that journey, going to another state, to another provider that I wasn't familiar with, and having that conversation with my provider, because it's important that our comfort level is there when we're going through the process of trying to understand what's going on with our bodies and the treatment plans that are recommended for us. So that helped me in my process, being engaged and asking questions about each step of my process with each provider. So they knew that I was an engaged patient and an advocate for my own health and my journey.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I just want to highlight as well is that according to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, there are some rights that we have. And I want to just point to the fact that you said you had a paper copy of your records. So we are in a technology immersed society, and they want us to use electronic health records. I want people to know that you can still request a paper copy. They may try to hand it to you on a flash drive. They may try to hand it to you on a CD-ROM, some of those things, but you want to make sure that indeed, if you want paper, you can get paper, okay? And Dr. Bean, I'm gonna just highlight a couple of things. Henrietta continued her comment. She said that her concern is that this affects sisters who look like her. And she feels that as Black women, we are so overlooked and miseducated when it comes to our health, and that troubles her greatly. And then let me see. Henrietta said again, Henrietta blowing us up, right? She said, powerful, I agree with you. It leads you to inform you of the importance of following up. And she said, bless you for sharing your story and your love. Diane said she is a breast cancer survivor as well. And your journey must be along your journey, you must be an advocate throughout the journey that you go through. And she said, consumers have a right to access their health information, which I just highlighted. And the other one, Henrietta was just saying, great point, Dr. Jenkins. So that oh, Michelle, I wish we had another hour because this is just so important to me. I remember being about 15, 16 years old, sitting at my desk. I had a lump in my breast and I did not know what to do. I mean, that's young to me. So I went home immediately and I told my mother, I said, I got a lump in my breast. There's some fluid leaking out of the nipple. My mother immediately became concerned, took me to the doctor. I ended up in a surgeon's office. I never forget him, Dr. Ahmad-Najat, who's probably gone on to be with the Lord now. But that was instrumental in my life and making me know that I needed to check my breast. I ended up having a benign cyst in my breast, but at the time I could see the fear in my mother's eyes. And of course, all I know is that she's fearful. She looks like she wants to cry. What does this mean to me? And of course, I knew what breast cancer meant, but what I didn't know is that what does that mean to me as a woman, as a young woman? And I remember Dr. Najat saying, I am going to fix your breasts because you will get married one day. You don't want your breasts to be scarred. So he was trying to do it in a way that, you couldn't tell that I had the surgery that I had. But it is just so important that we know our bodies. I cannot say that enough. And I think if you had one thing that you wanted to share with women around the world, Dr. Bean, because women around the world will see this, what would that be?
What would that be is not be afraid to be your own advocate. We know our bodies more than anyone else. And so when you're presented at a place where you're getting the care you need, don't be afraid to speak up and be your own advocate.
Yes.
Because it's important.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Well, we are at the bottom of our half hour together. This was just so dear to my heart. It was so important. It was, and I have to ask you again to just, what it was you shared with me about what women don't know in terms of access, in terms of those resources that are out there. Tell us just about some of those resources, because there's somebody that's going to listen to this that thinks that they're alone, that doesn't know what are some of those resources that they can access or look for in their communities.
Look for in your communities, nonprofit organizations, the American Cancer Society, some Susan Komen affiliates in your community. They have websites, they have financial support, they have
Yes.
support programs, groups. Connect with other women. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it on a larger scale, there's social media platforms out there with other nonprofit organizations at a smaller scale, more intimate, to be able to help navigate and to be an additional resource for you through your journey. The information is out there for us. It's just important that we as women communicate that that information is readily available to our community for those resources that are definitely needed for those that are going through their journeys.
Yes, excellent, excellent. And I love that. I love the fact that there are some resources out there. And I want to just highlight before we end this call is that the ability to have support even when you don't have a family to support you. How tell us, Michelle, how important that is to share your story in terms of support with a smaller group of people, perhaps. I don't know, but I know, you know, in all the lives that you've touched over the last several months through your organization, those support, how can we get support? How can we get comfortable enough? Who do we know how do we know who to look for? Tell us a little bit about that support.
Well, like I said, through various social media platforms,
Uh-huh.
you can type in breast cancer support, breast cancer financial assistance, type in those different keywords and see what comes up in different organizations, what their mission, their vision is, and follow them. I would say that follow them, see what they're doing, because I think what's important for different ones to have that voice, to feel comfortable to share their stories, that they see the consistency out in the community with these organizations that are providing that support to women. So we can feel comfortable to have that voice and to share our story and our experiences to help others that are going through their journey as well.
What about people who are not on social media? And this is the line that I'm thinking along, is that as I've been watching us move through this pandemic, there have been so many young students who live in low income areas who do not or did not prior to the initiatives that were going on even have access to the internet. How do I get support when I don't have access to social media platforms um, that I can find support in? What do I do?
In that case, where the phone, word of mouth,
Okay.
would come into play with that, because I know in our state in New Mexico, we have various rural areas where those resources are not readily available within our community. So it's important to have that word of mouth, share it with different ones, your family, your friends, in the community, because sometimes you can be in the grocery store or, you know, just everyday life, and you hear someone or you see someone wearing a pink shirt, because I know that's been my case, and you'll just open up that conversation, and you never know where it may go. So it's important for us to explore those different facets of opportunities to communicate the resources in our community, whether it's social media, word of mouth, in the grocery store, of course, with social distancing and our masks and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's important not to limit ourselves to specific areas of communications, because it's so vast. It's so vast to get the word out so everyone can understand that there are resources out there. We just need to make sure that our community know what those resources are.
Yes, yes. And Dr. P, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story, sharing a little bit of your life with us today. This makes me know and makes me reassured that we all have purpose in our lives. And however we arrive at that purpose, and we definitely, many of us are multi-gifted, so we have many things that we do. But I think this, Pink Me, you, your sister, your family, this is a perfect example of God's identified purpose for a people, for his people. And we're able to see it come to fruition, to see it manifested. That's why we have to work. We have to do the work. We have to wear the t-shirts. We have to be our own advocates. We have to get the word out, as when we have to speak up so that we can be heard. We've got to share our stories because lives depend on it. People need our help. So I'm asking you all, Dr. Bean, if people want to get in touch with you, tell us how to do it.
Yes, they can visit our website at www.pink-me.org. or email us at info@pink-me.org. And we'll look to hear from everyone. We'll love to be able to give back as financial resources allow to different ones in the community because it's so needed for many women that are diagnosed with this disease. So I'm happy to be able to give back to those on their journey.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Again, this is IAMB2's Speak Up, I Can't Hear You, Women Who Transcend Boundaries. And so we are excited to be with you today. We're excited that this message came across the incredible airwaves of the internet. We will be back here next week, same time, 12 o'clock Eastern time, with another woman who has transcended boundaries. Listen, y'all, I'm excited about this. I know that this is God's work even more after hearing Dr. Bean today, that we've got to do what we've got to do. We've got to take our platforms, we've got to stand on them, we've got to share our message so that we can touch the lives of women around the world. It is not just about us. It is not just about a small community of women who live around us. Women tell other women, they tell other women, and our message gets across the world. And so I encourage you to tune in next week. Dr. Bean, thank you so much again. I love you. I appreciate you. And I am so grateful for what God has done in your life. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.